It helps to unmute yourself when you're trying to stream. Oh boy, guys. Oh boy. What we're going to talk about today. My goodness. So, where to start? Where to start? So, for those of you that don't know who Modern Warrior is, we can go briefly over who and what he is. He's an Indigenous man who is an activist on TikTok. And he has really kind of come into the spotlight as someone who calls out racists, which I agree with. He calls out misogynists, which I agreed with. Um, he was the brunt of a lot of attacks by neo-Nazis, and his life was threatened. There were some really terrible things that were happening to him. He was really a voice for the Indigenous community. And part of me hopes that he remains to be that voice for the Indigenous community, because I believe that there needs to be as many voices speaking out in support of the Indigenous community as possible. Hi, Leon. I have no personal investment in this man beyond admiration of the work that he's done on TikTok in regards to this activism. I don't know him personally. I've never spoken to him personally. I leave a few comments here and there on his videos in support, because I really do try and support Indigenous creators on TikTok. And I feel like I've been betrayed by this whole situation. And I feel like I've been lied to by this man, even though I don't have a personal investment in him. Now, there are a lot of rumors circulating around TikTok and the internet in general about things that have happened, things that Lance has done. There was actually a Vice article or whatever, either written about him or it was a video. I can't remember which. It's 70-ish here. Have a window open. Yeah, it's cold here. It's cold. But I want to preface this by saying that my opinions on this situation are completely based on what has been posted publicly. So I don't have any insider information. I don't have any insider opinions or opinions based on insider information. And I'm not claiming that these are 100% truths. All I'm doing is commenting on the information that's been given to us publicly. Because there are rumors going around that he was grooming a 16-year-old, that he cheated on his wife with a conservative woman. I don't know the truth to those accusations, so I'm not going to speak to them because I don't have enough information on those rumors to form an opinion on whether they are true or not. So we're not going to touch on those. But there is a woman along with Lance that I have watched for about the same amount of time that I've watched Lance, and her name is Tsosie Hart. And she's a feminist. She has made some absolutely fantastic videos. I agree with a lot of her views, probably most of her views. I don't think I've come across a view that I have disagreed with, to be honest. So this stream is in no way a dig at her at all. I support her. I feel for her. My heart breaks for her because I know how it feels to be betrayed by somebody that you love, that you trusted. I mean, I think most people understand how that feels. Um, so my heart breaks for her. And I wish I had some words that could make a difference to her hurting. You know what I mean? But it's something that she's going to have to go through, and she's going to have to come to terms with, which is what we all have to do. But, you know, I don't know. I feel so kind of disheartened by this, because what it ultimately breaks down to for me personally is that when the Me Too movement began, right? There was this thing that went around, that was passed around by men, saying that it was women attacking men, women hating men. It's not all men, it's not all men, it's not all men. And I actually had an interaction with one of my husband's friends on TikTok the other day, who made a sexual assault joke. And I felt like it was inappropriate. And I specifically said to him, I said, this is perpetuating this whole, I don't want to say the word, I'll say grape instead, grape culture, that normalizes women being assaulted and making a joke of it, and how that perpetuates the atmosphere amongst men that this is not serious, that sexual assault against women is not a serious issue, and that men have a safe space amongst each other to perpetuate that stereotype that it's okay to assault women. And I said to this particular person, I'm like, by posting this meme that makes a joke out of victimizing women, just kind of helps normalize that it's okay for men to be this way. And that we as women understand that it's not all men. We know that. The unfortunate truth to that is, though, is that we don't know which men are which until it's too late, right? So as a woman, if you're by yourself, and hello, husband, if you're by yourself and you're walking down the street and there's a man that's walking 10 paces behind you, right? You feel that fear as a woman that this could be a somewhat dangerous situation. This man could hurt you. You have no idea of knowing that this is a man that may or may not hurt you unless he actually tries to hurt you. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. There's no way of knowing until it's too late. So we as women kind of have to suspect all men, because you guys don't wear labels on your forehead saying, hey, I'm not a rapist. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way for us to determine ahead of time who is safe and who is not. And for our safety, it's in our best interest to assume that it is all men until you prove us otherwise, because that could cost us our lives. You know what I mean? So how this applies to this situation with Lance is Lance would speak out against misogyny quite often, you know. So when men made horrendous comments about women, or made videos talking badly about women, and you know, attacking stereotypes and things like that, he often would call it out. And all at the same time, it's like he's trying to stand up for misogyny and speak out against it, while doing what he did in the background where we couldn't see. So we, based on what he showed us and what he told us, we assumed that it wasn't Lance. And then finding out in the last 24 hours that he is one of them. He is one of those men that we need to be wary of. kind of breaks your heart. Now, I don't mean that in the sense that I believe that Lance committed sexual assault. I don't believe that's the case. I don't think that this was assault. It was an absolute shitty thing to do, and it's certainly shown us that he has no integrity and that he can't be trusted. But I don't think that this means that he's guilty of sexual assault. I think that is going a little bit too far. But definitely what he did was super, super shitty. And, you know, when when a woman has been wronged and she says all men are trash, I'm trying to find the right words to say in regards to this, because again, it applies to the whole not all men. But it just makes it worse when we say, you know, all men are trash, and then you have somebody like Lance who publicly puts himself out there trying to portray the idea that he is not one of those men. But then we turn around and find out he absolutely was one of those men. It's just like, we got duped again, right? And it creates a lot of trust issues, because it's like, if men can put on this facade of, I'm one of the good guys, I'm an ally, I'm a male feminist, I'm going to stand up for women, and then we turn around and find out that he used this to his advantage, to take advantage of vulnerable women who trusted him, it's like just adding another tick to that. Yeah, men are trash, you know? It makes me very happy that I am not out there in the dating game right now. And my husband and I were talking about this the other day, about how thankful I am that I have been in a committed, happy relationship for the past 9 years. Because I don't feel like I would be comfortable putting myself out there with more and more of this crap coming to light. It just feels like men are getting better at being able to hide who they really are, to appeal to the female audience, to dupe us. You know what I mean? Like, I want to believe that there is good men out there that will stand by us, that will stand up for women and our rights and be an ally in what we have to face in the world. And then when we see people like Lance actually doing that, and then turn around and find out that they're just as bad as the rest of them, it's heartbreaking. So I am very grateful to my husband for being the man that he is. And I feel very fortunate to have found the man that I have, because this is what's out there. It just feels like men are getting more and more deceptive. And then, you know, like, we have platforms like TikTok, right? That is very easy to consume in high volumes, right? And my For You page in particular, I find I relate with a lot of things, right? So I find that, you know, when it comes to ADHD and the struggles I go through with that, I see a lot of people on TikTok going through the same struggles as I do. So I feel like a camaraderie with other people, because it's like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's going through these, or, you know, I'm not the only one that's quirky. Maybe I'm not as weird or an outcast as much as I thought I was, you know? But what happens when information like this is so easily shared and passed around, right? I feel like it's creating an environment which is making it easier for men like Lance to learn how to deceive women to get what they want. And I feel like that's exactly what Lance has done in this case, right? he knew all the right things to say. He knew all the right things to do. And I think that the TikTok platform helped him do that. You know? Like, okay, so this here is, I want to show you guys this, because this is a TikTok that I found last night that kind of spoke to the entire, my entire point, really. If you can't hear it, let me know, because oh, why can't I pause it? Poop. Okay. So basically, that was a video that Chelsea made probably about 8 months ago, 6 to 8 months ago, I'm guessing. It's an older video. But it was in this whole, like, it was peak, not all men, not all men, not all men. Women were like, men are trash. This is why men are trash. But there was a series of videos that went around with this song attached to it of women creators pointing out particular male content creators that didn't fit the bill of the environment at the time. So that's obviously Chelsea saying, hey, this guy is not one of the other men. This is a man that we can trust. This is a man with integrity. This is a man that's going to stand up for us and stand by our side to fight against misogyny. You know? So, and this is not a dig at Chelsea, because she believed him. It's not her fault for believing him. Like, I've seen a lot of content coming from TikTok and YouTube that have been criticizing Chelsea for coming out and telling her truth. And that's really frustrating for me anyway. To say you shouldn't be airing this dirty laundry out. Like, this should have been kept private. This should have been kept by the two of you. And I don't believe that's the case. I'm glad that Chelsea came out. And there is a couple other women that this has happened to. There's another one, I can't remember her name. Unfortunately, that's my bad. Who he did the same thing to. So he was doing this to other women. Unfortunately, Chelsea's not his only victim. But I feel like it's really important for them to be, not only for themselves and for their own healing, to come out and talk about what's happened to them, but also to shine light on the fact that Modern Warrior used his platform and the facade that he built for himself in order to manipulate women to sleep with them, and then lied about it, you know? And it shows his lack of integrity. And if we can't trust him, then how can we trust anything else that he puts forth on his platform? He's not a trustworthy person. And when it comes down to it, that is something that's very, very important. Because if you don't have integrity when it comes to your relationships with women, how can you have integrity when it comes to any other aspect of your life? And why should we trust anything else that you say? You know? There was no sound? Oh, okay. Well, you know what, though? That's okay. That's okay, because I might get a copyright ding for the song that was used. But it was like, I hope you know this has nothing to do with you. And that's when she points at Lance. And Lance replies with, I know. And then the dude that made the video at the end goes, but it had everything to do with you. Because that particular song is about shitty men, right? And the song points out that there's one particular man that this doesn't apply to. So it would be the same as me listening to that song saying all men are trash, and then pointing to my husband and said, this has nothing to do with you because I love you, I know you, and I know you're not that kind of person. That it's that type of thing, right? And Chelsea at the time, with what she had, with what Lance was saying to her and what she knew at the time, that's what she believed. And unfortunately, Lance used that to manipulate her into sleeping with him. They were in a relationship for the past 6 months. And we, as TikTok followers, the TikTok audience, didn't know. We didn't know that they were in a relationship. And you know what? That's okay. We didn't really need to know about their relationship until they were ready to tell us, if they were ever going to tell us. That's their call. I don't feel like they needed to be obligated to come out and tell us that they were in a relationship. I understand why they kept it on the down low, though, now. Because Lance was doing this to other women at the exact same time. And if he had come out, or Tsosie had to come out and said, hey, I'm in a relationship with this guy, then that would have screwed up all of these other relationships that he's had. Because who knows how many women he's done this to, right? Like, there's at least 2 women that have come out publicly and said that he's done this exact same thing to them. Basically, he sweet talked them. You're the only one for me. Yada, yada, yada. Come and visit me. Had unprotected sex. Unprotected sex. Willingly. And then found out that there was somebody else. Now, Tsosie has come out and said that Lance discussed with her polyamory. And this is not a dig on polyamory at all. But the main premise of this is that informed consent is key, right? You're not trash, husband. You are absolutely not trash. And I will never call you trash. But informed consent is key. So if you're polyamorous and you want to be in a polyamorous relationship, good for you. Great. Do it. But you owe each and every single partner that you're with informed consent. One sec. Molly, stop the jumping around. You're going to take everything upstairs. And that's not what Lance did. So, like, Lance might be able to sit there and go, I'm polyamorous. I want to be with multiple people. Okay, great. That's fine, Lance. That's totally okay. We support you in wanting to do that. But you don't get to deceive the people that you call partner by not telling them about each other, because that's the difference between polyamory and cheating, right? It's consent. So if you're with someone and they state that that polyamory is not for them, that they are monogamous, then you owe that person the honesty to say, okay, I can't be in a relationship with you because that doesn't work for me. Or you don't get to say, okay, we'll be in a monogamous relationship and then go behind that person's back and sleep with someone else. That's not how that worked. Now, there's this narrative going around that by denying Tsosie and this other woman, I feel so bad not knowing her name. I apologize in advance. But there's the rumor that because he denied informed consent to both Tsosie and this other woman, that is sexual assault. I don't believe that. I don't think it should be considered sexual assault. That's just my opinion. But it was a really shitty thing to do. It was a really shitty thing to do. And it, like I said, it calls into question his integrity for everything else that he's done. You know? And Tsosie specifically said in her video last night that she didn't want Lance to be canceled because she believes that he's an important voice in the Indigenous community. But ultimately, what I think is going to happen is Lance will be canceled for his behavior. And I don't know how I feel about that yet. Because like I said at the beginning of the stream, I feel like he does have an important voice for the Indigenous community and standing up for the Indigenous community and the troubles that they have and calling out racism. I feel that that's 1000% still important and still something that we should be doing. But it's hard to separate the two because, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. You can still be against racism, actively fight against racism, and then still turn around and be a shitty person when it comes to other areas of your life, right? So just because you're fighting against racism doesn't mean you're an all around 100% good person in all things, right? And Lance is just showing us that you can still be against racism, but still at the same time be a misogynist. I was absolutely supportive of him, and his supporters attacked me in the comments. So I found other natives to support. Screw him and his followers. Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I absolutely unfollowed, and I am not going to. I'm not going to be supporting him 100%. Because again, it comes down to integrity. If this is what he's doing to the people that are close to him in his life, and he's lying to them, how can he be trusted about anything else? You know what I mean? Being lied to about their relationship is an assault, in my opinion. If they both consented to sexual relations, it wasn't really sexual assault. That doesn't mean he's not a shitbag for being dishonest. Right. It is a really shitty thing. I guess where I can kind of understand where the line of sexual assault would be, would come into the specifics of this particular situation, because Lance has, according to the Tsosie and the other woman that he was with, is that it wasn't just sex, it was unprotected sex, right? And he told the women that he was sleeping with that there was nobody else. And that opens up the possibility of, well, if he's lied about this, he could be lying about whether or not he's got an STD or AIDS. So if he withheld informed consent and knowingly gave them, say, HIV, I have heard about cases being tried for sexual assault for giving somebody HIV knowingly, by knowingly denying that you have HIV and sleeping with someone unprotected and not telling them. So I guess that's where I can see where the line might be a little blurred. But at the same time, I sit here and question, like, I want to give Tsosie shit for agreeing to unprotected sex with somebody new, but I can't. And the reason why I can't do that is because I've done that myself. I've done that myself. That's how I ended up with a beautiful little 6-year-old girl with the man of my dreams, because I went into that and had unprotected sex, and that's on me. That's 100% on me. I took that risk, right? And no one can be blamed for taking that risk but me. But, and I think that Tsosie has some personal responsibility in that. And the reason why I bring that up in particular is, and I don't want to make light of Tsosie's trauma whatsoever, because I don't know all the details of her situation. I'm just going on what she has told us publicly. But according to what she's told us, she lost a pregnancy, or lost a baby. That was very traumatic for her. And that experience was something that Lance was helping her with, deal with the trauma of that, deal with the anxiety of that. What doesn't make sense to me is that if you went through that trauma of losing a child or losing a pregnancy, why you would go into another relationship and have unprotected sex and put yourself in a position where you might be pregnant with somebody else's child. But again, I mean, I can't judge her for that. Absolutely can't judge her for that, because I have done that. I am just very, very fortunate that me making that call didn't turn out terrible for me. I mean, I ended up having a wonderful child. I ended up being in a relationship with somebody that I love and that I'm married to and I intend to stay with for the rest of my life and that I trust with my life. So that turned out good for me by taking that risk. But I mean, taking that risk could have gone completely the opposite, right? Like, he was in Pennsylvania, I was in Canada. I took a pregnancy test and told him over the phone that I was pregnant. He could have easily just cut me out of his life and disappeared. And I could have never heard from him again. And because he's on the other side of the border, I wouldn't be able to do anything about custody or child support or anything. He could have cut and run easily. And that's a risk I took by having unprotected sex. Now, I'm very fortunate that he didn't. But I mean, again, that's a situation that turned out very positive for me, right? And I don't know. I want to say to her, like, oh my goodness, like, why would you do that? But I understand why she did it. I completely 100% understand why she did it because I did it myself, you know? And I hate that people are dragging her saying that this is for clout, that she's trying to get attention. And it's classic, let's blame the victim instead of holding the perpetrator accountable for being shitty. Does he have an STD that we are aware of? Not that I know of. Not that I know of. But again, how do we know that? How do we know that he doesn't? Right? There's no way for us to know because he has obviously shown himself to not be an honest person. So if he were to come on video and sit here and say, hey, I don't have an STD, there's no way for us to know that for sure. It's one thing to have an STD and not tell your partner. It's another for them to both consent to sex without knowing if either had an STD. The sex is still consensual in that situation. It's a lying or withholding of information about your own health that is bad. Yeah. But like I said, I have seen cases in the past where, because there was that, I can't remember where it was. It might have been in New York, of that dude that had HIV and slept with as many women as possible, intentionally trying to pass on the virus, you know? Rule before having sex, medical tests. In a perfect world, Leon, yes, that should be a good rule. That absolutely should be a good rule. Unfortunately, how often does that actually happen, though? Right? Like, we're humans. We want to bump uglies. And when you meet somebody that you click with and you tell yourself, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to control myself, I'm going to be safe. And then you get into the moment and your inhibitions go bye-bye and you feel like you can trust this person, you feel comfortable with them. And the next thing you know, you're not wearing any pants. You know what I mean? But ultimately, yes, that's what you should be doing. You should be discussing things like, what's your medical history? Like, do you have anything that I should be worried about? Another big thing that should be talked about before jumping in bed is, if this results in an unwanted pregnancy, what are we going to do? You know? But I mean, in the moment, how often do many of us do that? I mean, I know I haven't. Again, I just got very fortunate that I was impregnated by a good man who stuck by me and is still sticking by me. And it's very apparent that there's not many men out there that would actually do that. And it's, again, one of those things that you don't know who is who until it's too late, until the deed's already done. And then you find out what kind of people they really are. Now, apparently, Lance made an apology video yesterday to Tsosie. Now, he didn't apologize for lying to her. He didn't apologize for hurting her, deceiving her, any of that. He apologized for not being an effective communicator and said that he was going to use this as an opportunity to better himself. And I'm sorry, that just seems like he is trying to play this off as nothing, which is another reason why I believe that it's important that Tsosie and the other woman come out and tell their story and tell us what really happened, you know, because Lance wouldn't have come out and been honest about this. And we would have all just gone on and believed everything that he said. And I think it's also evidence that we as an audience need to be more skeptical of the people that we lift up, um, and make go viral for these reasons, you know? Like another example of this is when I first got on TikTok in it was like it was like late 2019 when I first started watching TikTok. And in 2020 I found this account called Infernal Asylum. And he was like he wasn't an activist in any way. He's a horror actor. So he like dresses up in scary costumes and does that kind of stuff, and like Halloween haunts are big things for him, and his content is really based on the characters that he's created. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but his demon content was really entertaining. Like I enjoyed his work, but he wasn't an activist in any sense of the word. But because his content was so entertaining, he blew up. Like he was like one of the first big TikTokers that I came across on TikTok. Like he had a following. And I think that he had over 1 million followers. Which now, like in 2022, is not really a big deal. But back then, when TikTok was still kind of a baby, to have 1 million followers was a big deal. And he made good content. He made quality content. There was a lot of people out there that enjoyed him. Unfortunately, what happened is that there was a lot of women that because he's an attractive dude. He's a decent looking guy. He's sexy and he has a sexy voice, and his content was, you know, on point. And there was a lot of women that were like, oh, hubba hubba. And I think in a way he used that to his advantage, because it was the exact situation that's going on with Lance that happened to Infernal Asylum. He had a handful of women that he was all romancing in the background. And now there was some accusations of sexual assault in this particular case. I don't really know whatever came of that. I don't think anything ever did come of it, because they were just accusations. But ultimately, he was being a sleazebag and seeing multiple women at the same time and keeping them all secret from each other. So nobody knew about them until one of them spoke up. And then a bunch of other women spoke up. And all of a sudden, Ian was canceled, and he stopped making videos for a really long time because he knew he did wrong. He knew he got caught being a womanizer, and that was kind of the end. Now, he still makes videos, he still makes content here and there, but he's not nearly as big of a deal as he used to be, because this whole controversy kind of ended, or not so much ended, but put like a stopper on how far he was raising up. Assault to me means any action taken against a person without consent, with explicit intention to cause physical, mental, or emotional harm. Then that would apply to this case then, because he was sleeping with multiple women without informed consent. So, but that's neither here nor there. That would be, I'm not an expert on that. Tsosie has come out and said that she does not believe that it's sexual assault. And I'm kind of undecided about it. So, and because I'm not a legal expert, I'm not going to put my 2 cents on whether I really think it is or isn't and why that is. I can't. I just don't have enough information to make that call, really. But I don't know. It's just, so Ian basically got canceled after he got caught doing the same thing. And it almost feels as if the TikTok fame went to his head, especially the attention that he got in particular from women, and women really kind of, well, you're so sexy, and, really sexualizing this man, which I think he took advantage of, and did that by reeling in a bunch of different women and, going about his way. Didn't really work out for him in the end. And as we're seeing, it's not really going to work out for Lance either. The key word is that informed consent. If someone is hiding an STD, then they are not informing a partner for their safety. Yeah, exactly. Which is, I think, the premise of what that dude that had HIV that was intentionally giving it to women. Because it's one thing if you have an STD and you don't know about it and you pass it along to someone. But if you know you have an STD and then you still go and sleep with other people and don't tell your partner, then yeah, that's a different story, because you shouldn't be doing that. That's a really shitty thing to do. You are willingly giving somebody an illness without telling them. You know what I mean? You're putting them in danger, because, people think too a lot of times that, oh, it's just an STD. It's not that big of a deal. Like, when it comes to like chlamydia and gonorrhea, things like that, those are curable. It's not really that big of a deal. Or like there's been a really big downplay in herpes, like normalizing herpes, HSV, right? Like, I get that most of us in one form or another have HSV, but if you in particular have genital HSV, that increases your risks of cancer, right? So by passing on an STD, not only are you giving them a temporary or possible temporary infection, but that could also lead to major health risks down the road, you know? Like, well, HIV is a big one, because obviously that can be very deadly. Now, we are fortunate enough to live in a time where there's drugs where most people with HIV, if they take their medications, can live out a fairly normal life, right? Was AIDS a pandemic? I honestly don't know if that was considered a pandemic. I'd have to look that up. But when you have STDs like gonorrhea and chlamydia and things like that, and this is something that I learned when I started working in long-term care, that those types of infections, even though you can clear them up with medication at the time, they don't always leave your system. And I remember talking to one of the nurses there who said that a lot of the dementia patients in the ward that I was taking care of, because I worked, at a long-term care facility where there were geriatric patients. And she explained to me that a lot of the men in our dementia ward had STD-related dementia, that in the Korean War and the Vietnamese War, they would go over there and get their jollies on, end up getting gonorrhea, chlamydia, things like that. And then coming home, finding out they've got an STD, and they're seeing the results of these STDs causing dementia later on in life. That's scary, because if you give somebody gonorrhea tomorrow, let's say, and they go to the doctor, they get the cream or the pill or the antibiotic or whatever and clear it up now, there's a possibility that in 40 years' time, 50 years' time, that person could be suffering from dementia because of that infection. You know what I mean? Like, that's a scary thought. And those are the kinds of risks that you take when you have unprotected sex with someone that you think that you may not really know, and you don't have any evidence to prove that, yeah, I don't have any STDs you need to worry about. I'm being honest. I'm safe, honest. Let's have unprotected sex. Like, this should absolutely 1000% be evidence of, if you're going to sleep with somebody, wrap it up. Please wrap it up. Like, protect yourself. Because not only is Tsosie now having to deal with the heartache of the betrayal of, being lied to and hurt by somebody that she really cared about, she now also has to deal with the added stress of, well, I might be pregnant with this person's child, or I might have an STD from this person, right? So it just adds to the problems that she already has to deal with. Molly, this is the second time I'm telling you to stop doing that. You need to take your Legos and go upstairs, please. Now. So, I mean, like, I don't know. My heart breaks for her because I know I've been in her shoes. I have totally been in her shoes. I have been completely catfished and lied to by somebody online and put at risk and taken advantage of that way. And I know how much it hurt. I know, cuz I was hardcore catfished in 2009, 2010, and it almost destroyed me because I did what Chelsea did. I trusted this person with everything that I was. I got on a plane twice, not once, twice, to fly down to Florida to see this person. And the thing is, I saw the red flags and I ignored them all. And that's on me. I don't know if there were big enough red flags for Tsosie. There's a possibility that she could have seen and ignored red flags. I don't know that for sure. That's just speculation on my part. And don't run. What do you mean don't run? Crap, Dave caught the clap again. Oh God. Anyway, where was I going with that? Totally lost my train of thought because I looked at the chat. The reason why, though, I called this video Hey Womanizer, it's just a play on what Lance has been using in his videos. He often refers to racists as Hey Colonizer because obviously, the white man came over here and stole the land from indigenous people. We killed them. We did some horrible, horrible things to them in the name of colonizing the new world. So I totally get that, Hey Colonizer. But it's just a play on what he uses, right? So, and I'm not the only one, but there have been a lot of people that, because he always opens up his videos when he's speaking in particular to a racist, Hey Colonizer. When he's talking to his audience, he says, Hey beautiful people. But when he's criticizing somebody, it's always Hey Colonizer. Since we're criticizing Lance Tsosie in this video, it's Hey Womanizer. And another ironic thing that I find is another one of his catchphrases is, I hope you have the day that you deserve. And if that doesn't speak to what he's doing, I don't know, because there's a lot of people that are just, Lance, we hope that you have the day that you deserve because you made this bed yourself and now you get to lay in it. Now, he deleted that apology video that he made to Tsosie because I guess he was getting really dragged on how terrible of an apology video it was. Again, ironic because he has called out people that have tried to apologize to say how shitty their apologies were. And here he is making a pathetic excuse for an apology. What I want to see stop happening is people dragging Tsosie and the other lady. Because there's a lot of people that have come out and said, hey, this should be kept private. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. And I think it needs to be seen. I think not only for Tsosie and this other woman to heal, and they need to feel supported by their communities. They need to be able to tell their truth. They need to know that it is okay to tell your truth, that you don't have to hide something just because it will be considered too personal or because there's people out there that don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Tell your truth. Always tell your truth. And again, going back to the sexual assault issue, again, not making the association or claiming that this was sexual assault, but women are often criticized for not coming out and telling their truth, right? So if a woman comes forward and says something, especially like we've seen it more and more with the whole Me Too movement, women come forward with their stories and say, this is what happened to me. And immediately what happens is, number one, she's questioned on, well, why did you wait so long? Why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you get a rape kit done? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? You know, so their integrity is questioned immediately before the person that's being accused. You know what I mean? So, I mean, a lot of women won't come forward after they've been assaulted because they don't want to deal with the backlash that comes with it, right? Like, if they don't feel comfortable enough going to the police right away, if they don't feel like, it's almost like you demonize women for not being strong enough after being assaulted to seek out authorities or help right away. Like, you have been assaulted in the most intimate way possible, and yet you're expected to go and tell people immediately, right? Like, a lot of these women feel humiliated, and they just want to pretend it didn't happen because it's easier to cope that way than deal with the backlash that can come with coming forward. And I think more women need to come forward with their truth. We need to be naming these men. Because if men think that women are too afraid to come forward and speak out about what's happened to them, then they understand that they can continue to keep doing what they're doing to women and get fucking away with it. Right? Let's silence the women that are coming forward with the truth so we can protect the men that are doing these terrible things and not hold them accountable for it. And I don't want to feed into that. You know what I mean? Ugh. It frustrates me about how we abuse victims for coming forward, and we hold them accountable for the things that have happened to them rather than holding the perpetrator accountable, you know? And then on top of that, like, if something happens to you and you need to get the authorities involved because a crime has been committed, right? You go to the police, you tell them what happens to you, and nothing is done. There's either like not enough evidence, or nobody believes you, or, you know, they get like, well, it's Brock Turner. Brock Turner is the perfect example of that, about how he violently assaulted a woman in a back alley behind a dumpster. And he got 3 months for that. 3 fucking months. Explain to me how you can violently assault a woman who is unconscious and get 3 months, but you can get accused of something minuscule, or you can get pulled over and charged with possession of marijuana and get 5 years. How does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, we are not holding these perpetrators accountable, and that's why they continue to do it, and they continue to hurt women. And we're so shocked that these men are still doing it, but we are creating an environment for them to continue to do it. And that's why it's so important that Tsosie did come out and tell her truth, and this other woman come out and tell her truth. I am very fortunate that I am someone that has never been sexually assaulted. There have been opportunities where, or not opportunities, but there have been instances where it's possible it could have happened. and I've been able to get myself out of that situation. I'm not saying that I've never been in a situation where I felt extremely uncomfortable, but it's never gone that far. So I can't say that I would ever be able to understand 100% what an SA victim feels. But I can empathize with them, and I can support them, and I can provide whatever I can to provide them with a safe space to tell their truth. And I can try and do my best to shut down the people that come out against them. I feel like that's a responsibility of mine as a feminist, is to support women in those cases. And I mean, a lot of people, and I've heard this argument so many times about, well, what about the women that come out and lie about it? And I'm not going to deny that there's shitty women out there that do that. There are shitty women that come forth and make false accusations. But we should take every accusation seriously until proven otherwise. You know? I think society does too much to protect the men that commit these crimes. And that's why it keeps happening, is because men feel like they're safe. So when we see people post memes on Facebook making fun of it, making fun of the fear that women feel around men that we don't know, it makes me really sick to my stomach, you know? Especially when it's other men that are doing it, because they don't understand. As a man, you don't understand what it feels like to constantly have to be on guard, or grown up being told that we need to learn how to protect ourselves because there's men out there that will want to hurt us. So we always have to be on our guard, right? Like, instead of putting the focus on let's teach our men and our boys not to hurt women, we have to instead teach women to protect themselves, because we don't want to harm the men by telling them they can't do something, right? We just have to prepare the women for the bad things that might happen to them. You're calling me Brock Turner? No, I'm not calling you Brock Turner. I'm just saying that there's men out there like Brock Turner. Unfortunately, there is men out there like Brock Turner. And there's people out there that perpetuate that whole cycle. See, I don't know how long you've been listening, La Morte, but this kind of falls under the umbrella of not all men, right? So we as women understand that it's not all men. We 1000% understand that it's not all men. Unfortunately for us as women, we don't know which man is which until it's too late, right? So if I'm walking down the street and there's a man that's 10, 15 paces behind me, how am I supposed to know whether he is going to be someone that hurts me or not until he actually does it? You know what I mean? So we women have to assume that it's all men, because we don't have any other choice. Because if we make a bad judgment call, then we're victims. You know what I mean? So we kind of have to go through life assuming that all men want to hurt us, because there's no way for us to tell the difference between the ones that do and the ones that don't, right? And that makes life very difficult for us. And then, you know, it's made even worse by men actually doing the things to harm women, because those women that have been harmed by men now suddenly have more urgency in assuming that all men want to hurt them, because they have evidence, because they have been hurt that way. You know what I mean? So we need to do a better job of teaching our boys that they can't hurt women. We have to hold them more accountable for the damage that they're doing. I don't think all women lie at all, just the one that did it to me. Not all men always seems like such a worrying deflection. Well, I mean, and it can be applied to, like it can be the same thing with all women, right? And by saying that women don't do that, that's just not true, because there are unfortunately women out there that do lie about it, that they do make up stories about that, and that's a really shitty thing to do. um it I totally lost my train of thought again there. um but I mean, again, for women, and I'm speaking as a woman, as my experience as women, we have to, for our own safety, assume that it's all men, you know, even though deep down we know it's not all men. You know what I mean? Like, because when I'm walking down the street by myself, and especially when I'm walking down the street with my 6-year-old daughter, you know, I have to assume that all the men around me want to hurt me so that I can try and keep my daughter safe. But see, I'm married to a man who is absolutely wonderful. I trust him with my life. I know that he would never raise a hand to me or our child. I know he would never hurt me. I know that he would go out and he would protect me at all costs, right? So he is I am married to the perfect example that it's not all men. But for the safety of me and my daughters, I have to assume that it is. Because what other choice do I have? You know? Do I mean, I take a risk, right? I feel like we got really off topic of Lance here, but these were important things to talk about, I think. I won't hurt you, Noodle. I feel like people are always going to attack me. Paranoia is a disorder. Yeah. Paranoia is not an easy thing to live with. Not at all. I 100% understand that completely. But what's unfortunate is that we as girls and women growing up are kind of indoctrinated with the idea that we are perpetual victims, that men out there want to hurt us. So we're raised in a culture that teaches us that we have to be on guard all the time. We have to worry about our safety all the time. You know, we can't even go out to a bar and buy drinks because somebody might want to drug us. We can't walk down the street because somebody might try and hurt us. You know, if we work a night shift at night, we have to make sure that we park in a well-lit area and that there's security cameras, or ask somebody to escort us. You know, like, we are indoctrinated with that, but that men want to hurt us, and it's our responsibility to protect ourselves because men want to hurt us. And I think we absolutely need to change that narrative. And I think it would be a more positive turn to it if we instead focused on teaching consent to younger children. You know what I mean? I always feel worried that a woman on the street ahead of me thinks I might be an attacker. I'd never do that. Right. And you know what? That's fantastic. I'm happy to hear that. But unfortunately, that woman has no way of knowing what your intentions are. You know what I mean? Like, you know that you would never do that. And the people that are close to you know that you would never do that. But unfortunately for that woman that is 10 paces in front of you, has been taught to assume that you do have those intentions. You know what I mean? So it's not your fault, right? Because you've done nothing to show that that was your intention. But we as women are taught to assume that you do, because that's what's going to keep us safe. And no, no, it wouldn't, because then it would be like, oh, you're lying. And I mean, that actually brings us full circle to this whole idea of what Lance is doing, right? Because he has been showing us on TikTok for the last year, hey, I'm safe. I'm an ally. You can trust me. I stand up for women. I stand up against misogyny. I stand up against racism. I'm a good guy. And he used that persona that he created for himself online to say, hey, I'm safe, to draw women like Chelsea in, and manipulate them to get in their pants. And now we're seeing that that was just all fake. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't have said I'm safe better than he did with his persona online. And now we're finding out that he wasn't. And that is extremely frustrating, because it's like, we want to trust you. There's like, seeing how Lance blew up, especially amongst the female audience, and how much he was admired for what he was doing, and how we kind of all rallied around him and we're like, yeah, we need, this is the guy, this is the guy. And then to turn around and find out that the ones that we really want to believe are good turn out not to be, it just kind of crushes our spirit a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it's like, we want to believe you guys. We want to trust you. We want to feel safe around you. And like, it's like, even when we do, then it turns around and guys like, I didn't mean to say you, but guys like Lance show us that we shouldn't. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating, because we want to find male figures that support us in what we do, so that they can be an example, like, not only for us, because we want to feel safe, but we want to use them to model behavior to the younger generation of boys and men, and be like, hey, this is who you should aspire to be. This is who we want you to grow up and be. We want you to be able to stand up to misogyny. We want you to be supportive of women. We want to see more male feminists. And then turn around and find out he just used women. And it's just like, oh my God, like, it just seems like the male role models that women want for their sons, it's just growing smaller, and it's frustrating. Men get insulted by that premise. We like to think we are good, kind people who would never harm others. When someone views us as a threat, it can be a little disheartening. Yeah, it can be. But what are we supposed to do when us women are told, when we are told as girls, men want to, like, we're told from a very, very young age, men want to hurt us and we have to protect ourselves. Men only want one thing. Guys only want one thing. Oh, dad has to get out the shotgun because you're going on a date, because the guy might want to hurt you or might talk you into doing something that you don't really want to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's our society and the way we raise our girls. We're teaching them to be afraid of men, because if they aren't afraid of men, then they're going to get hurt. When I lived in New York, I would see women cross the street to avoid being alone on the same sidewalk. Yep. Because that's what we're taught to do. Being seen as a potential threat makes us feel a little self-conscious. Are we scary? Do we look like a bad guy? Do we present ourselves wrong? It's none of those things. It's absolutely none of those things. It's just because you're male. Because, and the thing of it is that a man that goes out and hurts a woman doesn't have a particular look to him. Like, there's nothing to distinguish someone who doesn't hurt women against someone who does, because it can be any man. And there's no way for us as women to determine who is who. Like, and because we are told at such a young age that men want to hurt us, that should I apologize for being a man? No, you absolutely should not apologize for being a man, because again, that's not something you can control. And that's not something to feel bad about. We just need to shift the narrative to teaching our boys the importance of consent. And I mean, I see a lot of really great parenting stuff online, hoping that that's the direction that we're going. That we need to teach our children how important consent is, both female and men, or female and male. We need to teach them all, and non-binary. We need to teach all of our children, regardless of what their gender is, how important consent is, and focus on that. Because I think that if young children are taught the importance of consent, and that is enforced at home, not only for consent to other people, but they're taught consent for themselves, then we can grow up in a culture that looks at assault in any sense, not just sexual assault, but assault in general, can be looked at differently. You know what I mean? Oh, I've been streaming for an hour and 13 minutes already. My goodness. I didn't realize I had so much to say about all this. People get so offended by teach men about consent, but it's such a vital lesson to learn. Absolutely. You know, and like men will benefit from learning about consent as well. Like when it comes to themselves, because I'm not denying that there's women out there that assault men. Like that is not in my message whatsoever, because there are absolutely women out there that do assault men. So I think consent all around for everybody is vitally important. But we need to get away from this gender specific message that we teach to our children right now, that girls, you need to be on your guard at all times because men want to hurt you. And men, this idea that it's okay to be deceptive and, you know, you have a safe space amongst other men, that makes a joke of grape culture, basically. I hope Putin consents to getting fucked by the Ukrainian armed forces. Well, I mean, consent doesn't really apply in that department because, unfortunately, the civilians that he's responsible for killing did not consent to that. So he's kind of forfeited his consent and being held accountable for the damage that he's done. So, you know, he consented to the risks when he moved in and ordered that first strike on Ukraine, because he knew that it was a possibility that he was going to get murdered for what he's doing. And I mean, that's still a possibility. Molly Laurel, this is now time number 3. You need to go upstairs and play now. Oh, man. Anyway, I think I've yammered on about this topic. And I've had the TikTok screen on here forever, even though we only watched the one video. Oh, I needed to get all of that off of my chest. And I mean, I don't really post on TikTok. I mean, I watch a lot of TikTok, I'm going to be honest, but I don't really post videos there. And I mean, this is obviously something that I couldn't talk about and get off my chest in a 3-minute video. So I felt it better just to kind of get on stream and yammer on. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more that comes out about this. From what I've seen so far, Lance has not made further attempts to apologize for what he's done or even answer for what he's done. There's a lot of people on his videos right now that are like, hey, you need to respond to these accusations. You need to talk about this. Because there's a lot of people that support you, and, you know, we want to hear your truth. We want to hear what you're like, how are you trying to justify this? How can you, like, he said himself, he wants to use this as an opportunity to better himself. And I think the first step in doing that is coming out and publicly apologizing. I think that is a necessity for him. Do I think that that's worth forgiving him for? No, I don't think so. I think he's going to be dealing with the consequences of this for quite a long time. I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube already saying that this is it, that this is the end. This is his character arc kind of going down the toilet, right? Like, he had his rise to fame, he had his time in the spotlight, and now the truth of what kind of person he really is coming out, and now he's about to be done and be canceled. And I mean, Tsosie came out and said that she didn't want him to be canceled. Like, absolutely do not cancel him. Don't go after him. Don't attack him. But I mean, like, ultimately she doesn't have control over what people do. And there's a lot of people that want a white knight and be like, hey, I'm going to go attack Modern Warrior in the name of Tsosie, and, you know, feel like I'm doing my part and standing up for her. And she adamantly was, don't do this, don't attack him, and it's happening anyway. And I ultimately think that he will be canceled. Whether or not I agree with that, I don't know. I really don't know. Because like I said, I agreed with his platform with, you know, standing up for Indigenous issues and supporting Indigenous creators and, you know, all of that. Ultimately, I agree with that. Like, we need to really bring to light the issues that the Indigenous people suffer with, and we need to listen to Indigenous people about those issues. Unfortunately, now Lance's message has been tainted with his dishonesty, and he's going to have to deal with the repercussions of that. And he's got no one to blame for that but himself. But what can you do, right? I'm going to do my best to stand up for Tsosie. And, you know, again, I'm proud that she came forward and told her truth. And I think every woman should have the freedom and security to do that. And my heart breaks for her, because I know that heartbreak intimately. And let's hope she's not pregnant with Lance's child, because that would just further complicate things for her. And I don't think that she needs that heartbreak. Nobody needs that heartbreak, but in particular, I don't think she does. And yeah. Well, guys, I think I've pretty much talked myself out of that entire issue. I don't know if I'm going to have to cover it again, but like I said, there was particular instances about, there are particular things about this story that I felt like I really needed to get off my chest. Once again, everything in this video is based on my personal opinion of the information that has been shared publicly. So I'm not claiming anything as 100% truth. Just kind of giving a commentary on what's been put out publicly. No problem, Lamar. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you being here. Same with Leon, husband. I love that everybody is interacting and listening. I appreciate that, because sometimes I just need to go off on a tangent like this and just talk. And today was just one of those days, especially like when I found out, you know, about all of these videos and stuff online. This is a topic, or the kind of topic that is kind of near and dear to my heart, and I felt like I needed to voice my opinion on it. Whether or not you accept my opinion or agree with my opinion, or you like it, that's just that's in your court. That's up to you. But I appreciate everybody being here and listening to me ramble for as long as I did. But thank you so much, guys. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll be back sometime soon. I hope you have a great afternoon, guys. Bye.